What evil lurks in the dark? A question we have all asked ourselves many times. Together, we can start uncovering the truth and mystery behind the darker side of the otherworldly. And now your host of See You in the Dark, Michelle Roos.
Good evening to everyone, and welcome back to another episode of See You in the Dark. We have now gotten into our spooky season, and I have kind of kid around about all you hear is ghosts only come in October. But we're going to kind of change your mind on that. We have talked about a lot of locations, where there are darker things, but a lot of people don't talk about it. Well, I end up meeting a beautiful family. And you know how you always see it in the movies? They move into a home, things go crazy. But since it's Hollywood, people are like, is this something real or isn't it real? Their story started back in 2006. They had purchased a home. This is where they were going to start their family life, the same kind of dream that we all have. But things turn a little strange and then get stranger and stranger. And it kind of put this family in, one of those, are we going to believe right away? Or can we try to find reasons why things are happening? Now, you guys, if you follow on social media, if you looked at some of the write ups, which I was able to find, it is called the 1771 Enfield House, AkA the Demon House, which we'll get to you why that name was put there. There's a reason why it ended up going there, but some of the stories I heard, I would say that is actually maybe a good name. So let's get started. Let's hear this story. I am so grateful that they decided to join us. I have Jay Yaple and his beautiful family to talk about some of the things that has happened in the Enfield house. How are you, Jay?
I am doing very well, Michelle. I'm grateful to be on your show tonight, and I have with me my daughter Mackenzie and my wife Elka from Frankfurt, Germany. And I know she lives here. No, she's all the way from Frankfurt, Germany. Yes, so, yeah, all the way from Deutschland. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
So So we're glad to be on your show, and we have some amazing stories. We're going to talk about something that we haven't really talked about. Usually, we talk about the historical aspect of the house with the people that lived and died here, but tonight we're going to give you a treat. We're actually going to tell you some personal stories and some really, if we got enough time, some really dark stories.
Oh my gosh, yes. I think myself and the listeners are actually ready for this. And I want to thank you guys for actually, being willing to be open about it. We know that some places don't want to talk about these things because they think if it stays covered up, more people come. But you are very open with it. And, I kind of read on your website a little bit of what you guys had stated on there. And I was, so impressed with the whole, what, they're telling their story. And this is so amazing. So again, you guys, in the fall of 2006, you purchased the house, correct?
That is correct.
And did things start happening like soon as you moved in, or was it as you guys were fixing it up? Is it one of those stories that we all see on TV, or
Well,
how did it start?
well, it started, yeah, Elka's right. It started way before we even purchased the house. This entity, or entities, whatever they were and are, were extremely smart. You normally when you hear a ghost story, you think of, okay, someone lived there and it's somebody's grandmother, Oma, or Nana. That comes out in haunting. Well, this entity after being here for 18 years and can't get out of the house, it studied us. It was studying to see our reactions and how we were going to react to what this thing was. I know it sounds bizarre, but that's, as I look back and we look back, that's what had happened, because we believe, actually, it was John Zappas that said it. He said, um, I believe the house chose you guys. You guys didn't pick the house picked you. Um, and it's something that when we first came here, we were looking for a house. Um, and we were at that time, the prices were getting so ballooned high that, like, I would used to say that houses that would go for 50,000 were going for 100,000. Houses that were going for 100,000 were going for 250, and so on. So I went where I was working. A friend of mine told me about her husband. He wanted to liquidate a bunch of properties, that he wanted to start up a large car dealership to compete with some of the big families in Springfield. So when we took a look at it, I was like, "Oh no, it was run down and it was awful." So he gave us the keys and he says, "Listen," he kept sweetening up the deal every time we came here. And I'm going to let Elka tell you the first story that happened to her. It was on a third time here. We were looking, and that was when I convinced her to get the house. And that was, I think, my biggest mistake, because Elka was 7 months pregnant. And Elka, I'll let you tell your story, what happens next.
Well, when you showed me the house, I mean, the third time I told you I really don't care for that house. There was something in the house. I mean, by all means, I do not have any abilities, but something was I did not care for, and I did not wanted that house. So, but he kind of like made it all nice sound. Oh, I can fix everything up, and it's gonna be pretty, and I'm kind of like, okay. So on the way out, getting ready, I was the first one out, and I actually, I still don't know really what happened. I only kind of like know from Jay, kind of like that it looked kind of like I got pushed because I lost, um, kind of like I couldn't get my step, and stumbling down the stairs, more like not falling forward. It looked kind of like I put my arms in the back, so someone shoveled me from the back. I catched myself. I mean, down the stairs, but then when it came to the side curb, I actually fell. So this was kind of like our first thing, where she said, "I don't know, that's kind of weird. What happened?" And I'm kind of like, "I don't know. I was just going down, and then I felt kind of like I lose everything under my feet." And so, I mean, everything was fine, and we decided, okay, um, we're gonna still buy the house. And but alone, all the signs for it were there. Kind of like when we wanted to move, it was pouring rain, so everyone canceled at us, and I was kind of like almost out of commission because I was 7 months pregnant, so I was kind of like not. I was kind of like the package, but not really the helper, really. And so a lot of people canceled that day on us, so we pushed it out to another week. And but prior to that, actually, what should have already for us the warning was when it came to the sign up day from our purchasing the house. We're sitting at the lawyer, and the lawyer said, "Well, we need a year upfront house insurance," and I'm kind of like, "Yeah." I put every single penny in here. I don't have it. So I'm kind of like, I looked at Jane. I'm kind of like, "Ha, sorry, the deal is off. I don't have it. So I guess we can go home." And the former owner said, "Oh, you know what? I'm going to pay it for you. It's going to be my housewarming gift." So that was really strange. And then when we left, on top, we heard him saying, "Thank God I got rid of this house." And he was talking to his lawyer. So, well, we got stuck with it. We had it. So at the beginning, really, n- nobody really noticed because we all, well, you see all these shows on TV, or was actually the beginning of 2006 when the first paranormal shows came out on TV. That was kind of like brand new. Um, so for us, we watched it, but did we believe it? Well, I don't know. Never had an encounter with a ghost or with anything, so I thought it was pretty good entertainment. And we had a lot of noises in the house, but for us it was kind of like, okay, it's an old house. Old houses make noises, so that was actually how it started. Kind of like that stuff was misplaced, and yeah, noises. So I don't know. Do you
So,
want?
so speaking of noises, we're gonna jump right into the scary thing. After the babies had came home, we got situated. Um, and we decided to watch Saturday Night Live to kind of like, you know what, it was stressful, moving in and having everything like thing like that. So the babies were born premature. So when they came home, they were in their little rockers. We were watching Saturday Night Live, and this is when we started noticing, well, that this stuff is for real, and it was testing us. Elka got up, and I was laying on the couch, and she went out to get a glass of water. And I'm laying there, and all of a sudden she starts to walk in, and I hear smash. She drops the glass of water on the ground, and glass went everywhere, and she's pointing. How did you do that? How did you do that? I'm like, what are you talking about? She had a baby's diaper bag that looked like a giant duffel bag. And out where I was, the handle literally levitated straight up in the air, and it dropped straight down. And that's when she dropped the glass. And I'm like, I didn't do anything. I'm laying there. She goes, Jay, the whole thing just went straight up. So I went over, I had her sit down, I got her a glass of water, picked up the glass, and we were, trying to, she still couldn't, she kept looking at the bag, looking at the bag. So as the night went on, we went upstairs, got everybody else settled, and I was laying in bed, and it was all quiet. And Michelle, it sounded like a 500-pound trunk got picked up and slammed downstairs. The house vibrated. Now, these are the moments that you're like, okay, I heard it. I don't want to go downstairs because I don't want to recognize it. And as I'm laying there thinking about, oh my God, my stomach is like, I'm scared. I'm a little bit nervous because it vibrated the house. And Elka says, did you hear that noise? I'm like, what? She goes, are you awake? I said, yeah. She goes, did you hear that noise? I said, yeah. She goes, are you going to go downstairs and check it out? I'm like, oh man, I really don't want to do this because whatever made that noise, I don't want to confront. So, because of my background, she's like, you got to go down and check it out. So, I had a weapon with me, and I went down, and I'm like, man, if somebody broke in, this is gonna be awful. So I went down, I cleared each room, and I was puzzled. All the doors are locked, all the windows are locked, nothing was thrown, nothing was out of place. Everything was like the way we left it. And so now I said, well, you know what? I'm gonna go in the basement. And I said, I don't want to go in the basement. I said, if somebody's in the basement, they got the advantage over me. So I go in the basement just to make sure everything at that time, the basement was emptied. All the windows are locked, everything. So I came up puzzled, and I secured the weapon, and she's like, is everything okay? I said, nothing's out of place. She goes, what do you mean? She goes, that was loud. I said, yeah. It sounded like somebody had picked up one of those old steamer trunks, picked it up high in the air, and just slammed it. So that was our introduction to Haunted 101. we
The funny part
could
is
not
we
wait a
had
minute.
that several times, but
Yeah,
our babies never woke up. That
yeah.
was the next strange thing, that everything was shaking, but the kids were like kind of like
And the kids
sleeping through.
slept through everything. So as we got through that, it didn't wait. It started up. We started hearing somebody taking a cane and running up and down on the baby's cribs in her rooms. You kept hearing brrr, brrr, and not only could you hear it through the baby monitors, but you could also hear it with your own hearing. So, but every time we tried to go up there to find out what it was, it would stop. Then the darkness started coming in because when babies first come home, they're I'm gonna get this word mixed up, but bear with me, ladies. It's called swaddling. When the
Yes.
babies are I call them like little burritos.
Yes. Yes.
And yeah, so when they're newborns, they're coming home and they're swaddled. And I remember Elka yelling, "Jay, get up here!" And we could not figure out because we would find, now this is terrifying, we would find the blankets pulled over the babies' heads,
Oh my gosh.
and we said it's impossible for this to happen. So as time went on, it ramped up really fast. It didn't wait. I mean, there's so many stories, Michelle. I mean, I could literally talk to you for like 6 hours with horror stories. So I guess we're just gonna jump in and just give you guys some crazy stories. Um, so I think we're gonna go fast forward and backwards. And one of the ones that used to get me um, is I ended up going back to school. I went back to college in 2009 and 10. And on the way to school, I forgot my student ID, and I can't believe it because I'm older. So I turned around and I came back. Now the kids, they're about 3.5 years old, and Elka had left, and I was the last one out. So what happened was when I left, I locked the doors, I checked everything, and I got to school. I was like, oh dang, I got to get the student ID. So I came home, and I knew right away something was wrong. I got that sick feeling to my stomach, but now, Michelle, I smell cigar smoke, and I knew what that meant. As soon as I got to my front porch, I smelled the cigar smoke, and it was like somebody was just smoking a cigar. And when I opened the door to come in, all the all the kids' toys were in the living room, all in one giant circle. Like I just caught somebody having a tea party or something. They were all in a circle. I'm like, what the heck just happened? Then I looked up and I could have swore I saw this giant black flash, and I hear bang, like something falls. I hear, Michelle, something like a little kid running through the house, and like a little voice giggling. And I'm like, I gotta go find out what's going on. And I went to the whole house. Nothing was damaged again, nothing. I left everything downstairs, and I wish we had, iPhones back then, because that would have been great to take pictures. Um, I called Elka. I said, "Did you guys come back? Did you guys?" She goes, "Jay, you were the last one out." So when I left everything, figuring when Elka came home, she would see everything. Well, when we got home, all the toys were put away. The house was like it cleaned itself. And this is the beginning of, like, we were scratching our heads. Like, these are some of the things that were happening. And I'm going to let Elka tell the
Because
next
the
story.
toys were multiple times, kind of like when they were younger, when they're babies, they have all these electronic toys. And
Yes.
when I was at maternity leave, sometimes these toys were going off all at the same time, kind of like from giggling Elmo to whatever. Everything went off at the same time, and I literally had to scream, enough! And then everything stopped. And some of them even didn't had any batteries in it. So, and I was freaking out. I said, Jay, something is not right here. This is not normal that stuff does that. So that was kind of like where we the first time came together to say, maybe we gonna need a house blessing or something, because this was the first thing what came in our mind. Maybe we need a house blessing. So
So we decided to call the local church and talk to a gentleman. His name was Father John. Now, I just figured, like the movies, the priest is going to come over and say, "El Father, Hail Mary," by the power of
Yeah.
Christ, it's everything's going to be fine. So I was surprised when I looked out the window. I see it. This would have made a perfect movie, Michelle. Like I look,
It's
I
sounding like it. I mean,
I
I'm in like an awe right now.
I look out the window and I see this priest coming down the street in his black shirt and his pants and carrying a Bible and a bag and everything, and I'm like, oh my God, it's
you know
Salem's
what?
Lot.
Now you're saying that, because
Yeah.
that reminds me again. We just watched a couple of months ago, The Exorcist, and
Oh,
the priest
yes.
walks down, and there appears the street sign, and it says Prospect
Oh
Street.
no,
And
no,
I'm
no,
like,
no.
oh great.
So I go out and I meet him. I'm like, "Hi," I said, "Are you Father John?" He goes, "You must be Jay Yaple." I said, "Yes, I am." I said, "Come on in." I said, "Father," and you know how us guys are. We don't want to be at fault. So I said, "Father, my wife, she thinks there's something in the house." He's like, "Well, a bird, a chipmunk, a squirrel." I'm like, "No." I said, "More like, bleh, like a ghost." He said, looked at me like I was out of space, and he says, "Mr. April, there's no such thing as ghosts or demons." He goes, "That was created by Hollywood and the church to scare people." He goes, "And I will prove it to you." I said, "Okay." So he comes in and he introduces himself to Elka, and he's burning incense and he's throwing holy water all over the place, and went through our whole side, went in the basement, went upstairs to our attic, and he said, "CJ, nothing, there's nothing here." I said, "Well, Father, we got to go next door." And I said, "On the renter side." So I opened the door, and at the time it looked totally different than it does now. I had a table saw set up, my chop saws are all set up. I'm doing massive construction, and he's like, "Oh, I love the smell of fresh cut wood." And he goes all around the house. We go upstairs. And at the time, I got it closed off now. It used to go up to the attic. And he's like, "Jay, there's nothing here." I said, "Well, Father, you got one more room, and that's the attic." Now, Michelle, this guy just told me there's no such thing as the boogeyman. There's no ghosts. There's no devils. It's all fictional, right? This should have been like on a Clint Eastwood movie. All we needed was that, like, a woo, 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 right?
Yeah.
Music. Because oh, now the attic door had all these deadbolts and locks on it, and we couldn't figure out what they were trying to keep locked in there or trying to keep locked out, but he unlocked everything. And with great confidence, he goes and he turns and he goes up and he takes 3 steps up. He freezes and he's staring at something, and his face goes blank. He goes to take one more step up, and whatever he saw, to this day, he never spoke one word. He backs down, he throws holy water, and he throws holy water and he mumbles some words. He backs up, he slams the door so hard, and he locks it. Boom, 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 snap, snap, and he runs. Bam. And I'm like, "Father," I'm trying to catch up with this guy. I'm like, "Wow, this guy must sprint because he's fast." And he runs down the stairs, runs out. He gets 1 foot in front of the on the porch, 1 foot outside. He looked at me and he says, "Ignore it. It will go away. Good day." Boom. He was gone. I
Wow.
have no
Um,
idea what he
so,
saw that scared him to the core.
and that does happen a lot. They come in, because they do want to be stronger and they don't want to scare the people when they're in there. but I've heard that happen a lot. The one thing I do want to say, Jay, when Elka or anybody talks, have them come a little bit closer because some guests are having a hard time hearing them.
Oh, I'm
So we want to,
sorry.
no, you're good. I want to make sure everybody can hear you guys. But before we continue on, we want to go ahead and take a small break so we can get into this some more. This has been amazing so far. I can't wait to hear some more.
Okay.
The UNX Network presents a health and wellness spiritually based brand of hemp-derived CBD products made by Hopewell Farm in Harrogate, Tennessee. We apply our Cathara energy work with all of our plants and products. Our products made in small batches with only 2 ingredients of pure hemp, full-spectrum crude oil, and coconut-derived MCT oil. Third-party lab tested for potency and legal THC levels with 6 strengths of 1 ounce oil to choose from. Know what you're buying and get what you pay for from Hopewell Farm. Applied directly to a specific area, Hopewell Farm topical salve in 1 ounce and ½ ounce sizes made with pure hemp crude oil, comfrey extract, and all natural ingredients. Find the Hopewell Farm link and coupon code on the UNX Network website at unxnetwork.com. That's unxnetwork.com.
Unlock the mysteries of the spirit realm with the new book, Meeting Wallace. In this channeled work by renowned psychic medium Larry Costa, the reader will delve into the profound wisdom of his spirit guide, Wallace. Together, they share the transformative journey of harnessing psychic powers from the celestial plane. Discover the extraordinary psychic gifts that have empowered Larry on his path and immerse yourself in a thought-provoking and awe-inspiring read. Meeting Wallace is a groundbreaking endeavor, and it is a perspective seen through the eyes of a spirit guide. Discover the wisdom of the spirit realm alongside actual photographs of ghosts and spirit guides. Get the book Meeting Wallace by Larry Costa at Amazon.com.
We are a few weeks away from the 2024 XCon in Springfield, Missouri, and you still have time to get tickets and join us for 2 nights and 3 days of speakers, workshops, paranormal investigations, vendors, and dance the night away at the Mad Hatter's Ball and Banquet. Be sure to bring your favorite Halloween costume for the ball and enter to win the costume contest. Come celebrate our 3rd year birthday and engage with amazing presenters like Tyler Kiwala, Micah Hanks, Dan Terry, Michelle Roos, and so many more, including keynote speaker Scott Nelson on the Ron Moorhead Bigfoot recordings, October the 11th through the 13th at the beautifully haunted Oasis Hotel and Event Center in Springfield, Missouri. Go to unxnetwork.com for tickets and details. That's unxnetwork.com.
And welcome back to everyone. We have been talking about the Enfield home. We're talking to Jay Yaple and his family. So things have been going strange. Things are now starting to get a little bit worse. You know, it's starting to really show itself to you. You've had the priest come in. He takes off. He pretty much has no time for you at all. And I seen in your story, and I just see when I see the name Lorraine, are we talking about Lorraine Warren?
Yes, I'm glad you must be psychic because we were just going to talk about what happened next.
I was gonna say, because if you're starting to bring the name of the Warrens in it, and I heard earlier, John Zaffis, so, now we're really starting to talk about,
Yes.
hey, it's getting dark enough that we're having to bring these people who will not run away. So does she come into the home and,
No.
or any, no,
She
okay.
to the day she died, she refused to come out to the house.
Was
So
she getting her visions about it? Did she ever
Well-
talk to you guys about any of that?
yes, we talked to her many times on the phone, and I'll tell you what happened. We had called up many paranormal teams, but back in 2006 and 7, there wasn't a lot like there is now. And now it's like you look in every corner, there's a paranormal team popping up.
Yes.
So back then, it was like going to like the Karate Kid. We were looking for Mr. Miyagi, right? To
Okay.
in the paranormal world. So we were going through paranormal teams one after another, and they were coming in here, and they were like, "Okay, yeah, we it's probably a ghost," and they're like, "You know what? We'll be in contact." They watched things slide across the floor. They got scratched. Some people got bit. It was downright nasty. They were throwing things, and people were just like, "Okay, we had it. We'll contact you." Never did. So we were looking for more and more experience. So I had contacted his team called CPRS, Connecticut Paranormal Research Society. Now you're going to hear some more bigger names. A gentleman, two gentlemen we had talked to was Orlando Ferrante and Joe Frankie. And Joe Frankie is right now, he's the CEO of the Warren Legacy Foundation. But back then, he had a team with Orlando Ferrante. So Joe had sent in Orlando, his partner, to check out the house to make sure that our claims were real. So when Orlando came out and his teams, when he left, he goes, "My God," he goes, "I've never been in a house like this." He says, "I have to get a hold of Joe," and Joe sent him back to get more evidence. And Orlando's like, "Joe, you have to come out. You have to come out." So now when Joe does come out, nothing happens. Michelle, it's like Leave It to Beaver. Everything's all fine and happy in the land of Oz. So Joe's like, "I don't get it. This doesn't make any sense." And Orlando, his partner's terrified. He goes, "Joe, wait, it's going to happen." So Joe says, "I'm going to come back," but he said, "I'm not going to let you know when or anything like that." So all of a sudden, Joe comes back, but he brings in like the National Guard. He brings in Orlando. He brings in an ordained minister. He brings in a person who can channel. He brings in a camera woman and a bunch of other people. They put the ordained minister in the baby's room. They put Orlando and him were down there channeling. They had camera people up there, and I'm going to speed this up a little because we're going to be short on time because there's so much I want to get to you guys and things I never said before. But all of a sudden, Joe, as this entity was channeling, Joe finally gets mad and says, "Do something. Show yourself. Do something." Well, Orlando made the mistake and asked the entity to take him on. It waited a year. Until this day, Orlando, well, these guys were seasoned guys. These guys worked with Ed and Lorraine Warren since the
Yeah.
90s. I just talked to Orlando, and he remembers everything. He goes, "Jay," he goes, "please don't ever ask me back to your house." He goes, "I love you like family," but he goes, "I can't come back to the house." He goes, "That house is still affecting me and my family to this day." So Joe and them were channeling. They challenged this thing. Now upstairs, they had a video in the baby's room. Nobody knew about this. Well, all of a sudden, as Joe says, "Do something, show yourself." My 5-year-old son at the time can blow out a candle. You heard this smash, pow, and you hear, "Joe, Orlando, somebody help me." I go running up there because of my background. I'm like, I'm going into the line of fire, the first one, and I see this woman. And the only reason I talk about her weight, because to show you how powerful this entity was, she was about 5'2", 245 pounds. It picked her up and threw her 8 feet down the hall, smashed her shoulder in the door. She had a really expensive camera, and it blew it all the way across into my bedroom. And I looked at the ordained minister, and now I was an ex-military police for a few years, and I'm always was taught situational awareness. So I'm in my mind, I'm looking at everything, what's going on really fast. And I look at the ordained minister, and I'm like, "What happened?" He goes, he's on his tippy toes, and he's like, "1 minute, Audrey's standing there. Next minute, I see her flying down the hall." So Joe and Orlando get up there, and she goes, "I was pushed. I don't know what happened." From 1 minute saying she's pushed, she's pushed, she pushed. Then later on, she goes, "I was picked up. I felt like a bunch of linebackers picked me up." So Orlando goes, "Joe, you got to make this phone call." So they go downstairs. They called. They had Lorraine on standby, and Joe had called Lorraine a couple of times, but that moment they told Lorraine what happened. They said, "We witnessed levitation. We got bit. We had this and this happening, and we need you to come up here right away." And Lorraine said, "Wait a minute, what are you leaving out?" And Orlando says to Joe, "You have to tell her." And he says, "My dear sweet friend," he says, "Lorraine," he goes, "Audrey, our camera woman, was picked up and thrown about 8 feet down the hall." And there was a moment of pause. And she said, "I am so sorry. Tell the family I will be with them on the phone, but I cannot put one foot in that house. I can never come to that house, Joe." And they begged her. And to the day she died, we talked to her many times on the phone. She was a really sweet lady. She never came out. So as that happened, we realized we were in shock. We could not believe that this happened. This is like something you hear about in the horror movies. This was witnessed by all these people. So now it kept getting worse and worse. Finally, Orlando came over and he said, due to the safety of our team, only myself and Joe are allowed to come over the house. He goes, "I'm not going to leave you, Jay." He goes, we're gonna I'm gonna stay with you." He says, "But this is affecting my family." It waited a year and it started to destroy Orlando. Now, in the meantime, we had put a phone call out to a gentleman who worked with the church. His name was Robert Baker. Now, Bob Baker worked with Father Robert Bailey, and he worked with the famous Bishop Robert McKenna. So Bob says, "I don't want to get involved into a serious case like this." He goes, "I'm getting older. I've been involved in a case like that." He goes, "But in order for me to get the church involved, I need to have a list of teams or people that were involved." I said, "Well, you know how the paranormal is. They may not talk to you." He goes, "Let me deal with that." So Bob called everybody up and he says, "This is really true. What you're telling me." He goes, "Everybody verified your story." He goes, "I'm not going to put one foot in unless I have the church." So he brings in Father Robert Bailey. Now, Father Bob gets messed with. He has his rosaries. I'm going to speed this because I know we don't have much time. He gets his rosaries gets taken out of his pockets and put back into his pocket right in front of everybody. So Father Bob, after that night, he came in and he did the Animal Planet, but after that, he would never return. Um, so Bob Baker had brought in Bishop McKenna. Now, the first time the bishop was supposed to come out, and if I speed up, Michelle, I'm sorry because I want to. There's so much stuff I want to tell you guys because it's this is one incredible story. So when the bishop was supposed to come up, Bob Baker was 10 minutes away, and he says, "Are you guys home?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "You got all of his little snacks and everything the bishop wants?" I said, "Yep." 5 minutes later, Bob calls up. He goes, "You're not going to believe this." He said the bishop's secretary just called. The bishop wrote on a piece of paper he got struck with a mouth infection and lost his voice and couldn't speak for 3 months. And then he told Bob that to not to let us know when he's coming over. He's just going to show up in case of whatever happened to him came from that house. So when the bishop comes over, he runs into this entity. He did everything he could do. He rebaptized the babies. He actually had his bottle of holy water um taken from him and disappeared on him and literally placed underneath his briefcase in front of a whole team. So as that happened, we thought the bishop was going to save us everything, but the bishop said he scared me. He says there's two things are going to happen. He says what we want is for us to win and this entity leaves. But he said, "Jay," he goes, "here's something I want to tell you." He goes, "We don't always win." he goes, there's been many exorcists that have died fighting these entities. And he says, so let's hope that we did what we came to do and this thing leaves. But he says, here's the other bad thing. He says, if it returns, it's going to bring back his friends and it can get worse. And that we don't want. So the bishop left. We had peace for almost 2 weeks. And then all of a sudden you heard rapping on the walls. All hell broke loose.
You hear hoofs running on the walls.
Listen to this story. Elko's going to tell you this story. We were getting the winter clothes down, and we were getting ready. Now this is a story we never told anybody. Go ahead, Elko.
Yeah, so we had upstairs. Now the bedrooms in the attic. Actually, we finished. One is one of our girls has a as a bedroom, and the other one is an arts and crafts room. But in earlier days, this was actually an attic where we stored everything, and we stored our clothes. So I got multiple times scratched when I went up there. So after a while, I learned kind of like to open the door and go up there or not. So I brought the clothes down, and there was one of these nights I had to get it done, but I knew something is gonna happen. So I come down the stairs again, and all of a sudden you hear something running, and it sounds kind of like a someone on
Sounded
horse,
like
like a horse.
sounded like a horse on two legs, like it had two hoofs, and it was coming down the stairs. And then
You could not hear it on the floor. It sounded like it was running in the wall, on the walls, kind of like in a circle, and freaked us all out. I don't even know. But
it, yeah, what happened was I was down on the ground picking up the bags Elka was throwing down. Elka came down, and all of a sudden you heard this thing. It sounded like on two hoofs, like something was standing up and coming down the stairs, and then it sounded like it went on the walls, like it was running on the walls coming behind us. And Elka and we were just we couldn't see it, but we could listen to where it was coming, and as soon as it got out the door, it was gone. And that had freaked us out to like the very core to hear something like that and to both hear it at the same time. It was astronomical, Michelle.
That is, I mean, you think about it, there's a lot more people who have probably lived through just maybe half of what you guys have. Now, you guys are still there, correct? Are
That's
you?
correct. We
s- It seems it's so strange, and sorry to interrupt, but
no.
when people watch some of this stuff on TV, like, real hauntings and there's interviews, a lot of people talk about when they're in a situation like this, everything stacks against them that they can't leave.
Yes.
And it seems like it's like something that continues on, and I mean, when you're talking about things like that, these are age-old, non-human things that, they don't care what they do or how they scare you.
Yep.
But, just listening to some of it, I'm just like, "Oh my gosh," to have to deal with that horror on a, daily basis and not be able to, do anything about it no matter what, is
And
probably just,
that's
oh,
we were helpless. Now I'm gonna take us up a notch. We still got a few minutes, right?
yes, got a few
Okay.
minutes.
So now people think this. Why couldn't we leave? Well, this is where it gets bad, Michelle. And I'm gonna try not to cry on this one here because it hits home. Um, in 2010, after I took on another job, and where I was working, I had became friends with this attorney. His name was Michael, and he didn't believe in ghosts. He was actually joking with Elka. He says, Elka, he goes, all I have to do is drop the papers, you sign it, we'll have Jay put away in the hospital, and he'll be having fun doing art classes and all kinds of things. And she's like, no, no, no. He goes, here's what I'm going to do. He goes, guys, do as much work in a house. He goes, I'm going to get you into a better mortgage. He goes, my goal is to get you between 40 and $50,000 cash. He goes, you get out of the house. He goes, you get another house. He goes, do whatever you have to do with the house. He goes, don't worry about it. So in the meantime, as that's happening, I can't tell the whole story, but a friend of mine, John, and I never tell this part of the story. He ended up dying. But I'll get to that point. So as John's helping me get the house going, it's in 2009. I get laid off for no reason, and Mike's like, "That's a bad thing." He goes, "But we're going to get you a new mortgage, but we can't get you any money out." He goes, "I'm sorry," but he goes, "We're still going to keep trying that." So that was in the fall 2009. And Mike invited us to his Christmas party. He had some of the best parties. He used to laugh and joke. And he said, "Why don't you and Uncle come up?" He goes, "At my office." He goes, "It's Christmas coming up in a couple of months." He goes, "It'll be a great time." I said, "Mike, I'll see." I said, "We got toddlers now, Mike, but if I can," I said, "we'll make it up." Who would believe, Michelle, that was gonna be the last time I would ever see my friend alive. Um, my brother came over for Christmas, and again, I would not believe that was gonna be my last time seeing my brother. So what happened was, we had a guy come over and he brought over a psychic medium, and we were in a basement, and she grabbed her throat and she hit the ground, and she said, and she couldn't breathe. And as that happened, that little voice, something reached over and said, "Now you done it, you're going to pay." Um, well, that year we got the psychic medium out. She says it felt like somebody was pouring concrete or sand down her mouth and she couldn't breathe. Well, um, that May, I'm going to skip through a lot of stuff because we don't have time. I got a phone call. They found my brother dead. They don't know how he died. A week later, Elka's dog she had brought over from Germany had died. A week after that, my sister Charlene, they found her passed away. She was sitting in her chair with with a plate of food. Her eyes were wide open, and she was gone. All in 3 weeks, I lost half my family. As I'm going, I was still in school at this point, and as we're getting through that healing, I get a phone call. Are you Jay and Elka Yaple? I said yes. They says I'm handling the estate of Michael so and so. I'm like, get out of here. I said, did Mike put you up to that? I said, "You joking?" He said, "No, Jay." He goes, "Mike's dead." I'm like, "What?" I thought I couldn't believe it. And he says, "Mike died in the fall. He was teaching softball and he had a massive heart attack and died."
Oh my
And
gosh.
I was almost numb. Elka was afraid I was gonna start to drink. I was like, I lost my brother, my sister, my dog, and a close friend. Um, and it got worse. Now, the guy who was helping me, John, he was a young kid, and he came over. He was actually the godmother's son. He was in his 20s, and I was telling him, I said, "John, be careful about the ghosts." And he goes, "You believe in ghosts?" He goes, "What you did in the military?" He goes, "You believe in ghosts and leprechauns and fairies?" I said, "No." I said, "Listen, buddy, there is something here. Something's dark." And he started picking on this thing. He's like, "If you believe in God, then you believe in the devil." And he started to pick on this thing. And I said, "Don't do that." He goes, "Really, Jay?" He goes, "Someone like you, somebody of your character is afraid of something like this." And I said, "No, don't pick on this, John." Well, all of a sudden, he decided to cut this huge tree down. His chainsaw got stuck in a tree, almost killed him. He missed death by mere inches. Um, so he went to go pick up his new girlfriend from Kentucky. He borrowed his friend's truck. On the way home, he got into a severe accident, almost killed him. The state trooper said, "If you don't believe in God, you better." Because when I come to an accident like this, I'm usually putting over the black tarp. Um, He gets back on the road to go pick him up. He goes back to Northampton, Mass to get his vehicle. Gets on a highway. Two tractor trailers hit him, sandwiched him, almost killed him again. He ended up with pins and needles. He was a volunteer firefighter. He was going to go back in the military. Lost everything. A few years after, he stopped coming to the house. He goes, I believe whatever is in that house is attacking me. And he says, I thought you were joking. He goes, I didn't believe in this stuff. And he says, I can't come over anymore. Even when we had birthday parties and his children would come over, John wouldn't come back in the house. Well, um, it finally got him.
Oh no.
And hang on, because this is the part that I never talked about. It got him with all the injuries he had. He was in such severe pain.
Oh no.
He he got some medical marijuana, but I don't know what happened. But it was laced with fentanyl, and he died. He
Oh
died in
no.
outside the BFW on a cold day. Um, he was frozen to the ground, and I could only imagine what his thoughts were. So that got me. Um, but that was the first time we were trying to move out. Um, and we tried 3 times and it stopped us. These are some horror stories that we don't like we normally don't talk about. But yeah, the second,
Um, whew. Well,
yeah,
one, I am so sorry for your losses. My cheekbones are hard. I got tears in my eyes. Um,
um,
and I think people don't understand, when you're living in this much horror, you can tell the stories, everybody's in awe, but the emotional and mental anguish that you guys are going through, people kind of seem to forget there's humans trying to survive all of this. And, just listening to that, when we're talking about, like you said, there's paranormal teams everywhere. When you have teams that are not prepared for things like that, it can cause damage in locations like yours,
yeah,
and it might not be to them, but to your family or your extended family and friends. And that's why I am so thankful that you guys are very open about this because it's out there. These are not, not everything is happy spirits that just want to run around and be like, hey, it's me,
It's not always
yeah,
Casper.
yeah. It's not always Casper.
No, but it's definitely not Casper. What I would love to do, because we are running out of time, I would definitely love to have you guys come back on because I think the listeners would love to hear some more of your stories and kind of tapping into some of the other things, and a little bit of the history that kind of gives them an idea of
Yes.
maybe what could have happened. Um, I just, I know all of us want to hear more. Everybody does. One, thank you so much for having your family here and being so open about it. I've got
Thank you for
goosebumps.
having us.
Um, but let's definitely get together because I definitely want you to be back on the show and kind of pick up where we left off, go a little bit into the history, and then kind of talk about some of the other things that have happened to you guys. And I know you were talking there for a while, about all the deaths and, not natural.
Yeah.
And, kind of dig deep into that. For all my listeners, thank you for listening in today. Again, these are real people. This is a real story. This is not Hollywood. This is a family that has been trying to navigate this home since they got it back in 2006. They have been living in a horror movie themselves and trying to navigate it. So the losses you had, my heart pours out to you guys. And just real quick for everyone that's listening, we're only a couple of days away for the XCon. I hope to see a lot of you out there. Um, it is October 11th through the 13th in Springfield, Missouri. We have some great speakers. We have everything from cryptids to paranormal, you name it, it's going to be there. Um,
Not
and
so far away.
I know I wish you guys weren't
Yeah.
that far away. I would love to had you there. Oh my gosh, it would have been so it'd be one of those I'd be like, I can't speak because I'm busy listening. Again, thank you guys so much. But hey, definitely
Thank
gonna
you
have
for
to do some
having us.
coffee and tea so I can hear some more.
Yeah.
And I am sending you guys lots of love and light. And
Thank
also to my
you.
listeners, sending you guys all my love. And till next time, I will see you in the dark.
Thank you.